debate. We're looking at the visit of the Emir of Qatar and how to Gaza, the first foreign head of state to travel there since Hamas took over 5 years ago. With us to talk about it from Beirut, Osama HAMDAN. Also with us, Fatah member Kareem AMIRA. Gil with us, MIHAELY of Yediot Aeronaut, and joining us from Jerusalem, NUSEIBEH. Before we go back to our panel, let's cross over to Gaza right now and join our correspondent Gallagher Fenwick for the latest. Gallagher, just briefly, first off, have the raids and rocket launches subsided this evening?
Yes, Francois, for the moment there is a lull, no rockets being fired for the past few hours, no Israeli air raids as well. That being said, it's a little too calm to consider this a done deal in the sense that there's going to be no more violent interaction between both sides. The rhetoric remains very fiery. Remember that the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu just moments ago along those southern communities was saying that he was considering deeper and more extensive military action in Gaza if the violence continues. And Hamas is also saying that they will answer tooth for tooth and an eye for an eye against all Israeli aggressions. They've also evacuated a lot of their ministry buildings and security forces related installations.
Does the Emir of Qatar's visit to Gallagher feel like a turning point when you speak to people in the streets of Gaza?
There's mixed reactions, Francois. On the one hand, you do have thousands of Palestinians who were elated, very happy to see this, this head of state, the very first one to come to Gaza since Hamas took over back in 2007. Remember, the Hamas is playing this out to be the beginning of the breaking of the political siege imposed on Gaza. On the other hand, I did speak to some Gazans who were a lot more skeptical, saying that he was meddling in internal Palestinian political affairs, and in doing so, perhaps widening the rift, the division between the Islamists who control Gaza and their secular rivals in the West Bank. Another Palestinian telling me that it's not the first time that someone or an organization comes to Gaza with suitcases loaded with cash and then leaves a few hours later without anything subsequently changing in the Gazan people's lives.
All right, Gallagher Fenwick, thanks for that update from Gaza City. Again, as Gallagher was mentioning, the Emir was only there for 4 hours. The visit, though, undoubtedly a coup for his hosts.
Qatari Emir Al Thani and Gazan Prime Minister Ismail Haniyeh side by side. It was the first time a head of state visited the Palestinian territory since Israel launched its blockade in 2007.
Today's visit officially announces the break of the economic and political blockade imposed on the Gaza Strip by the forces of injustice.
During the Emir's one-day visit, he laid the first stone of a project to rebuild homes for poor families. Haniyeh announced Qatar will invest $400 million in the enclave, up from the $254 million announced earlier. Gaza is still reeling from a 22-day Israeli military operation between December 2008 and January 2009. In recent days, tensions have been on the rise once again. Hours before the Emir's arrival, an Israeli soldier was severely wounded in an attack, one day after a series of airstrikes killed and injured several Gazan militants. Israel has criticized Qatar for reserving its first Palestinian visit for the Islamist group and sidestepping the more moderate Fatah in control of the West Bank.
Gil MIHAELY, your thoughts?
Well, first of all, there are two big games in the Middle East. One is containing Iran. The other thing is what to do with the Arab Spring or Arab revolutions. Gaza is interesting for Qatar, which is an important player in these two very big games, because Gaza is linked to them. Hamas has links with Iran. The Palestinian Authority
has or had since
they have to. They are still a player in the Iranian game, and of course they are a player in the Arab Revolution game because they have a frontier with Gaza, with Syria, and because they are part of the larger Muslim Brotherhood movement. So the Israeli-Palestinian problem became less important since these two big games took up the front of the stage. And the Emir is in Gaza because from this very less important problem, Hamas is more connected to the big problems. So what's interesting what is priority for the Emir is to deal with Iran and to position himself to the new Middle East and North Africa that is shaping out of the Arab Revolution.
You talk about dealing with Iran. It could well be a sign of how Qatar's foreign policy has perhaps shifted. For years, it was that tiny little state that played broker to everyone else, including Israel, with whom, as we mentioned, it has diplomatic relations, and Iran. Times have indeed changed. If you look on the New York Times correspondent in Tehran's Twitter account, Thomas Erdbrink writes the following: bitter for Iran leaders to see Qatar Emir handing out gas dollars in Gaza, their part of joint gas field not bringing in dollars due to sanctions. NUSEIBEH, is this visit going to haunt Qatar in the sense that is this going to stoke the ire of Iran, which is already unhappy with Qatar's active support of the rebels in Syria?
Well, I think there are two elements to this visit. The first one is economic, humanitarian, and secondly, it's political, and it's mainly being politicized by the Palestinians rather than by the Qataris. The humanitarian and economic benefits that the Emir of Qatar has brought to Gaza, I think, is number one, and that what makes it difficult for anyone to criticize that visit. He's simply building houses for refugees, and that is no one.
But how is this visit going to go down in Tehran?
Oh, well, obviously they will not be happy because he has essentially sidelined one of their main allies, the Hamas movement. This is also why it would be seen as a win for Qatari diplomacy, particularly since the start of the Arab Spring. The Iranians would not be happy.
Osama Hamdan, does Hamas have a better friend now in places like Doha and Cairo than it does in Tehran?
Well, I have to say first that Hamas is a resistance movement against the occupation, and the occupation is still attacking the Palestinians. We have our relations with the Qataris from more than 14 years, and we have our relations with the Egyptians during even the period of President Mubarak and now with the President Morsi. And at the same time, we were having the relations with Iran. Our relations is not part of an axe against someone in the region. Our relations with all those countries and other countries is based on one clear fact. The Palestinian people are under the occupation. They are working hard to liberate their land from the occupation, and they are seeking to have support from everyone. This support which came from Qatar is not supposed to be considered as something against Iran, or if Iran supported the Palestinians and their resistance, this is not supposed to expect that the Palestinians will accept all the Iranian policies towards the region. This is not the situation with Hamas. Hamas has clarified its position. We are not part of the policy of any country. We are the resistance in Palestine, and we need all the support for our people and our resistance. I don't think someone is supposed to be angry because the Qataris are supporting the Palestinians. I believe it's a good chance to say, well, we are willing to do the same, which the Qataris are doing. And it's a big question for all the countries and the sides. What are you doing towards the Palestinian cause and the Palestinian people? Rather than talking, you have to make actions, which is a great sign had happened from the Qataris, and you have to follow that up. If you want to be angry, you have to be angry against yourselves. You are not supporting the Palestinians as you are supposed to do.
Gil MIHAELY, though, is this a clear sign that the Qataris are through playing middleman with Iran?
No, I don't think so. But I do agree with Mr. Hamdan, at least partially. I think that in a way, the Emir is paid a visit to Gaza in order to pay Hamas for disconnecting itself from Syria. The big game for Qatar was in Libya, getting rid of Gaddafi and putting his people there. The second big game is to get rid of Bashar al-Assad. And the fact that Hamas left Damascus and that Hamas, in a way, betrayed his Syrian allies, well, it was something. It was worth a lot for Qatar. And in a way, the Qataris are paying now for this change of strategy from Hamas side. And I agree, I think from an Israeli point of view, it's better that Qatar invests in Gaza and have good relations with Hamas than Iran does.
Do you agree, Kareem, AMIRA?
Well, I agree on one thing, that this is not, I want two things to be clear. The first, we don't want to be an arena for regional conflict to be implemented in Palestine. So I want to avoid having this just because Iran and Qatar are not.
But you agree
aligned.
that this is a reward for dropping for leaving Damascus and effectively for severing ties with the Syrian regime?
Well, Mr. Hamdan made it clear. We as Palestinians now we are in a kind of resistance period. So we never betrayed someone, even as Hamas or as Palestinian in general. We are now seeking for our independence, seeking for it's with the debate I am doing is about is it political or non-political or economical. Tehran have nothing to do with this. It might be Qatar who's like putting themselves in front line with Iran, but that could be the reason why doing this. But we, from our point of view as Palestinian, we are discussing whether it's the timing is right or it's economical. And that's I would like to add one point to Mr. Siniyaf in Jerusalem about the dignity and job issues, which is like it's important. It's not a matter of money coming to our pockets. Dignity comes from liberty more than getting jobs. We as Palestinians have been seeking for sympathy from the whole world since 65 years now, and it turned up with nothing. So it's time to seek our dignity through asking for political positions instead of just development, fundraising, and donation issues.
All right, Hanem NUSEIBEH, I want to ask you this question. We've talked about Qatar at this point is amazing because it is a small emirate of, several 100,000 citizens, and yet it's speaking to everyone in this conflict and everyone in the wider Middle East. It's a tightrope act, obviously, except the Syrians accepted. It's a tightrope act. Will this visit come back to haunt the Qataris again? Not just because it will upset, as you mentioned, the Iranians, but also because of the Syrian regime's anger.
Well, I don't think so, but the Qataris are aware that working with Middle Eastern issues, and the Palestinian issue in particular, is a very difficult one. And I cannot think of anyone who's been involved in Palestinian and Israeli politics who has not been criticized by someone at some point. The Qataris appreciate this and have taken this undoubtedly into their calculations. So it's not an easy ride. And that is why I think the Qataris are particularly brave in taking that step. The engagement of the Qataris, looking at how they've been engaged with other countries, is not simply going in, giving a bag of money and leaving. That certainly has not happened anywhere as far as recent Qatari diplomacy is concerned. The Qataris have a very much hands-on experience, and my prediction is that the Qatari involvement in the Palestinian issue will move ahead from Gaza to other places in the Palestinian territories, and I very much hope this would happen soon. The onus is not only on the Qataris but on the others. It is an engagement, I think, that is a slightly longer-term one that many people are thinking it is. It is driven by economic diplomacy, which I think is the way forward as far as Middle Eastern issues are concerned, including Israel, not Israel and the region, but rather Israel in the region. And if countries were given awards, I think Qatar should be given the award for brave heart. They're very brave in taking this on.
Economic diplomacy, isn't that those the words of Benjamin Netanyahu when it comes to the Palestinian Authority rather than recognizing a Palestinian state, Gil MIHAELY?
Exactly, this is the famous economic piece. Exactly. The fact that the Emir and Qatar in general didn't do the minimum effort even to maintain a facade with the Palestinian Authority is revealing. I think that they don't think that the Palestinian issue as such is important, and he did what he needed to do in order to advance his policies in the big issues, which are Iran and the Arab Revolution, the new regimes in the region. He did the minimum that he had to do in order to advance his issues, and he didn't do anything in order to advance the Palestinian issue, because what I think the Palestinians would like most is that someone push Gaza and Ramallah back together into establishing a single entity. This is one of the Kareem mentioned earlier, the fact that the Palestinians would like to be recognized as a member state or as a sub-member state, or I don't know exactly what the term is. But one of the things that
of the UN,
one of the handicaps is that there are two Palestines, and so if the Emir wanted to help advance the Palestinian strategy of entering the UN, he should have worked for a reconciliation, which he did in the past.
Well,
all right, and a final thought. Before there's reconciliation, there is an election in Israel. The Israeli Prime Minister now on the campaign trail after dissolving parliament and calling snap elections for January. This Wednesday, he visited an Iron Dome anti-missile battery near the southern city of Ashkelon and promised more protection and more military force in Gaza, as our correspondent Gallagher Fenwick reported earlier. I want to thank all of our guests for joining us. Osama HAMDAN from Beirut. I want to thank NUSEIBEH for joining us from Jerusalem, and here in the studio, Kareem, AMIRA, and Gil MIHAELY. Thank you for being with us here in the France 24 debate.
Thank you.